Hey there, this is John with Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. So, the big theme for this week really is non-basic lands. Last week we saw the Zendikar fetch lands just explode. This week we continue to see trends with other non-basic lands in standard as well as modern. So before we get into the countdowns, just a quick reminder, we've recently started a Patreon page, and these videos are really made possible from the support of viewers like yourself. I do want to thank our 3 patrons that have already signed up for the month of August going into September. Really appreciate your support and really need more support to hopefully increase the quality of the channel. So thank you for checking it out, and let's get into the countdown. We'll start off by looking at the top 5 standard cards that have lost value this week. Coming in at number 5 is Goblin Pile Driver. It lost $1.20, bringing it down to $7.68. Basically, this card just hasn't found its home in Standard or Modern at this point. Now, there are some fringe Goblin decks that are playing 4 of these, but it kind of got outclassed in Standard by the more non-Goblin version of the red aggro deck. So, yes, it is seeing some fringe play, but just not to the level I think a lot of people expected. Hence the value drop. It hasn't really shown up in Modern yet either. Now, if there is a Modern Goblin deck that shows up over the next few weeks, the value of this could change dramatically, and of course, post-rotation, it has an opportunity as well. But right now, it's not doing a whole lot. It will probably continue to drop down to perhaps a $3 to $5 card. Number 4 is Kytheon, Hero of Akros. And speaking of cards that haven't found a home, this is another perfect example. This is down at $1.25 to $10.97. This is a really fine card. It's a real good card. There's just no white weenie deck out there in Standard or any sort of aggressive Boros deck or anything that this card can be a part of. And because of that, it's drastically lost value. Post-rotation has an opportunity, but at least prior to that, I could see this going down at least a few more dollars. This could be a $5 to $8 Planeswalker before all is said and done. Coming at number 3 is Liliana, Heretical Healer. Now, she is seeing a decent amount of standard play in some different decks out there. However, there was so much hype around this card prior to the release of Magic Origins, the price was just dramatically inflated. So losing $1.45, it brings her down to $24.67. Still pretty high. I feel like the value of this card based on how it's being played right now should probably be around the $15, $18 mark. So I expect this to drop some more before it stabilizes. Coming at number 2 is Days Undoing, and it lost $1.70, bringing it down to $10.16. So the first week after the set came out, there was a Turbo Fog deck that was trying to use this along with Sphinx's Tutelage, and it just was a little bit clunky. It did well in the Star City Games Chicago Open Series that first week, but after that it kind of fell off, and players have found now a much more streamlined, effective way to play Sphinx's Tutelage that doesn't kind of reset the whole board with a Days Undoing. So this is going to continue to drop unless it finds some sort of combo deck that it can grab a hold of in either Modern or Standard. It's a powerful card. At some point somebody's probably going to find a use for it, but to be quite honest, and I kind of said this in the set review, and there were some players that took exception to it, but this card potentially could be good, but the issue with it is everyone's trying to compare it to Time Twister, and Time Twister is broken because of the other cards that you're drawing with it. This type of effect is only as good as the cards that you pick up. And if your opponent picks up better cards, then it could be even bad for you. So when you're playing Vintage and you play a Time Twister, yeah, I'm picking up crazy mana accelerants like Moxes and Black Lotus, and I'm picking up combo pieces that are going to help me win the game immediately. When I'm playing Standard, I have the drawback, first off, that my turn has to end, so my opponent gets to go first. And secondly, I'm not drawing things that are going to accelerate me into ending the game. Those just don't exist in Standard. So this card, you could probably reprint the original Time Twister in Standard, and it probably wouldn't have as much of an impact as anybody would think it would have. So, for what it's worth, Days Undoing, it's a card some people may want to speculate on just because it's going to dip down to probably a $5 card. It'll probably be a bulk rare within a year or two, but at the same time, it really has to find some sort of niche for it to increase in value. And coming in at number 1 out of the cards that lost value is Archangel of Tides. This card went down to $1.71, bringing it down to $10. There was a lot of hope that this would bring Mono White Devotion into the standard scene. Players have been trying to make Mono White Devotion work since the beginning of the Theros block, and it's kind of always almost got there. And this card was really the card that people hoped would tie it all together. It still almost got there. There's some successful results with Mono White Devotion along with this card in some of the Star City Games Opens, but it just kind of got outclassed by some of the faster decks like the Ornithopter deck and the Mono Red Aggro deck. Alright, let's look at the top 5 cards that gained value in Standard this week. Coming in at number 5 is Wooded Foothills. So here's the beginning of the land theme for the week. And this went up 68 cents, bringing it up to $15.99. Basically, your Khans fetch lands are still hot. They're still creeping up at a steady pace. If you still haven't purchased those fetch lands, I don't know what you're waiting for. I tell you every week to go out and get your play sets. And even if you're not planning on playing Wooded Foothills anytime soon, maybe you're not playing a red-green deck, for 16 bucks, shoot, pick them up. They're just going to go up because at some point the metagame is going to change and you may want to have these in your collection to play with. So get them now before it's too late. Number 4 is Sphinx's Tutelage. So this is up $1.21, bringing it to $2.29, which is pretty significant. It's an uncommon, so it won't go up super high, but it's definitely seeing some play. There's a deck out there that's seen a lot of success over the last couple weeks, and it is a mill deck, and it's just basically using this card in a lot of draw spells and then finding some ways to kind of defend itself and slow down the game to mill the opponent out. It's a pretty cool deck. It's definitely a fun deck for Friday Night Magic, so I expect this to maybe go up a little bit more, but it is an uncommon, so it won't get to astronomical levels. Number 3 is Flooded Strand, and this went up $1.25, bringing it up to $18.16. Yet again, here's another Khans fetch land, and keep in mind, all these Khans fetch lands are pretty hot. Windswept Heath is the only one that's kind of lukewarm, and that's just because it was recently included in the Clash Pack for Magic Origins. So if you need copies of those, Clash Packs are one way to go. Coming in at number 2 is Temple of Epiphany, and there are some decent decks right now in Standard that are playing the blue-red artifact theme, and that's why this card in particular is kind of up in price, going up $1.72, bringing it up to $5.64. I really like all of these Scrylands. I don't know what kind of lasting power they're going to have after they rotate out of Standard. They're very, very good in Standard. They're not quite as great in Modern when you have competition like the Shocklands and Fetchlands and some of the other big dual lands that are out there. However, there's something to be said for being able to scry, especially if you're a combo deck. So I do think that they will continue to see some play in Modern, and they do right now. Maybe even a tad bit in Legacy, but these are also great in Commander decks. They're great in cubes. So I think there will be some long-term value here. And if you can pick these things up for $3 to $5 when they rotate out, I'd pick up some play sets. You know, they're relatively cheap, no harm done, and long-term you'll have them if you need them. Coming in at number 1 in Standard is Polluted Delta. $22.53, it went up $3.17, and yet again, another Khans fetch land. Not too much more I can say about it. Alright, let's look at the top 5 Modern cards now that have lost value this week. Coming in at number 5 is Snapcaster Mage, and he went down to $1.29, bringing him down to $70.49. The thing, though, is about 4 weeks ago now, he saw kind of a nice little spike that occurred, probably mostly due to speculation, maybe a little bit of hype and concern that this won't be reprinted till at least the next Modern Masters in 2 years. He went up to about $80, and now he's just stabilizing. So he's back down to around 70. He might drop a little bit more, but I don't see him dropping more than, say, the $65, $68 mark, and then he's just going to start creeping back up. So if you need Snapcaster Mages, you're probably not going to do much better than $70. But at the same time, if you're thinking of selling yours, hang on to them because they will have some long-term value for sure. Number 4 is Bitter Blossom, and it lost $1.37, bringing it down to $34.24. Mostly, this is because of the reprint that we saw in Modern Masters. Now, it was a mythic rare, which helps this card retain the value. This is the Morningtide version. However, the other issue going on with Bitter Blossom is it does see some fringe play in Modern, but didn't make the impact I think a lot of people expected when it got unbanned. So it's not showing up in lots and lots of decks or anything like that. But I do see this being probably a $25 to $28 card long term. I think that's a fair price for this card, as long as it doesn't show up in a deck or get bolstered by a rotation. Next card is Blood Moon, and this went down $1.49, bringing it to $50.83. In particular, this is the original Modern Masters version of it, and this is much like Snapcaster Mage. A few weeks back, this saw a little bit of a spike. It saw a lot of play in the Pro Tour, the Modern Pro Tour that happened a few months ago, and this really shut down the Amulet Bloom deck, and it's just a very powerful card. So because of that, it definitely saw a huge increase very quickly. Now it's just stabilizing. This is going to remain a $45 card at least. Again, much like Snapcaster, it might go down a little more, but then it's going to start creeping back up and maintain its value. Our number 2 card that lost value this week was Tarmogoyf. In particular, this is the new Modern Masters version of it, bringing it down to $157.33 with a loss of $1.92. So something interesting about this card. Now, the other two versions of Tarmogoyf are both up around $165, $170. So if you need Tarmogoyfs, this is the one you want to pick up. As far as its long-term value, yeah, it's eventually going to catch up with the other two. The only reason it's low right now is a lot of these are being open still, so it's kind of dipping. But let's face it, if you need a Tarmogoyf, you need a Tarmogoyf. This is the one to get if you're ready to shell out $150 for a card. And our number 1 card that lost value this week was Misty Rainforest. So this lost $1.95, bringing it down to $68.72. This is the only dual land that's really bucking the trend this week. The only reason is this saw a huge increase last week along with all the other Zendikar duels. Now, the Zendikar fetch lands really have, for the most part, maintained their value, or at least in one case gone up in value, which we'll see in just a moment. But this one lost a little bit. This had the biggest percentage increase last week when all was said and done. And because of that, it's just stabilizing a little bit. But these things, I would have expected them to have gone down more than they did. But they seem to be maintaining and holding their value pretty steadily, which is a little scary. All right, let's look at the top 5 modern cards that have gained value this week. Coming in at number 5 is Arcbound Ravager, and this went up 96 cents, bringing it up to $44.10. And this card's hot, it's cold, it's hot and cold. It goes up and down every other week, but it stays right in the $40 to $45 range. Affinity's a powerful deck. It's going to continue to be a powerful deck, even though it's very easy to sideboard against it, and sometimes it has some downturns in the metagame, but it's always going to be there. This is a good card. If you're interested in playing Affinity, you're probably not going to do much better than $40 on this. Coming in at number 4 is Crucible of Worlds. This went up $1.01, bringing it to $36.69. And this does see modern play, obviously, but I think the main reason for this increase was there was a Legacy Open last week for Star City Games, and some Lands decks had some good showings. And this was powering out soft locks with cards like Wasteland. Very cool deck, very cool combo, but I think Legacy's driving this price more than Modern. Next is Grove of the Burn Willows, and here's another big dual land. Went up $1.44, bringing it up to $54.97. It's another card that's kind of had its ups and downs over the last few weeks, but it's staying steady between $50 and $60. It's a good card. It's going to continue to see growth as the next couple of years go on. Number 2 is Horizon Canopy, and this went up $2.90, bringing it to $62.50. Same story as the previous card. It's been kind of up, kind of down, but this is a $60, $65 card. It's just going to stay right in that price range for a while, and then it's going to keep up, creeping up, unfortunately. So this is another really strong dual land. It's basically a modern staple at this point. It's going to continue to see a price increase. Hopefully at some point we'll see reprints for Grove of the Burn Willows as well as Horizon Canopy, but just don't know when that's going to be. And finally, our card that increased the most this week in Modern, surprise, surprise, was a Zendikar fetch land, and it was Verdant Catacombs. Went up $5.60, bringing it up to $63.69. So this is the one that had the big increase, where Misty Rainforest had a little bit of a decrease. The other three pretty much stayed steady from the huge increase they saw the previous week. So that is saying a lot. This really makes the barrier for entry into Modern difficult for a lot of players. I mean, shelling out $60, $65 each for a play set of these is crazy. It's going to be very difficult for people to do. Now, can you play a Khans fetch land that shares one of the colors that you need? Yeah, sure you can. But if you're really trying to be competitive, you really want to play the fetch land that's on color for you. And if you really want to do that, you're going to be shelling out a lot of cash. So that's difficult. The other option is you don't get into Modern, or maybe push a real competitive Modern deck that uses these until they finally do get reprinted, but we don't know when that is. We know it will happen, we just don't know when. So having said that, that is the market watch for the week. So I hope everybody has got their dual lands and their non-basic lands, because they are just going to keep going up in price, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. Having said that, again, if you haven't had a chance, check out the description below for a link to our Patreon page. Really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. These videos are made possible by viewers just like you through Patreon. Please check out our Patreon page by clicking on the top right. Down below, we have more links to quality Magic the Gathering content. And if you're interested in seeing trading cards open that aren't Magic the Gathering, check out the link to our trading card channel, Heroes and Legends Trading Cards. Thanks, and have a great day.